Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7. It's that time of the week once again when the weekly challenges go ahead and refresh. So in terms of this week, good news, we do have the best reward possible on offer, a free car reward. In terms of the events themselves, I would say overall they're actually not too bad. I did find myself actually enjoying this week's weekly events. We have a bit of a different special event as well in the form of a pre-existing event actually getting turned into a, I guess, special event, which is a bit weird, and I'll explain more. So this is November week 1. This will end on the 7th of November 2024 at midnight. So event number 1, this is the European FR Challenge 550 at the Nürburgring GP. We then move on to the Historic Sports Car Masters at Willow Springs International Raceway on the Big Willow layout. Then we do have the special event. So this is the Lightweight K Cup. It's already pre-existing in GT7 as a, bunch of, I believe, like 4 events overall. And it is getting turned into a special event. So we have it Kyoto Driving Park Mayabi layout. However, it does seem that unfortunately this won't be added to the pre-existing events. It'll probably just disappear after the week. That's a massive shame. I do feel like Polyphony should add that to the roster. We then move on to Dragon Trail Gardens and the Hypercar Parade before heading over to the final event of the week at Autopolis International Racing Course for the WTC 800. The rewards for this week for one event is a 6-star parts ticket, for 3 events is 150k, and for completing all 5 events is the free car ticket reward. So with an overview done and dusted, let's move into event number 1 of the week, which is of course the European FR Challenge 550 at the Nürburgring GP, of course aimed at FR layout European cars around a 550 pp rating. So again, this is a fairly easy event. It's going to be a 2-lap sprint race. My car of choice for this one was the Aston Martin Vantage. This thing sounds like absolute thunder as it roars around the track, and it's a car that I've not really given enough time in GT7 overall, so this was an obvious pick for me. In terms of the event itself, as mentioned, this is a 2-lap sprint race, so you don't really need to worry overall about, really it being difficult or anything like that. You may get thrown off at first if you check the weather radar or just really look around, as it looks very dull and very grey. You also may notice that some of the cars do have their windscreen wipers on. Don't worry though, it doesn't seem like it actually rains here. It is just purely the formation on the weather radar. It's very dull, very grey out there, but there's no actual rain that seems to set in over this 2-lap race. Now in terms of the AI themselves, there's not many of them, 11 of them on track, and they are pretty easy overall, apart from maybe the front runners, which do seem to build up a fairly large advantage over the rest of the field. So since this is just a quick little sprint race, you do want to be pushing as hard as you possibly can just to get your way through the field as fast as possible and get up to those front runners before, of course, the event ends. As long as you get yourself up there sooner rather than later, you should have no problem actually getting past the AI. They don't put up much of a fight, and I did notice that the M4, which seems to be the quickest of the bunch when it comes to the car here, did actually end up getting caught up behind the other AI, which was the Z8 that you're seeing just up ahead here in the battle. That did overall make it much easier, meaning that when the car actually broke free was about the time that we were up there and also making the move. So it didn't manage to get a massive gap over the rest of the field, thankfully, and we did manage to make relatively short work of the M4 going around the outside and getting first position taken away from it. At that point, it's all about just finishing the race as cleanly as possible and taking the win. As you can see, we moved past the M4 and then it was basically job done as we built up over a 2.5 second lead and crossed the line in first place. Overall, not a bad event at all to begin the week with. That's tick number 1 and 37,500 credits upon completion of this event. Not the highest paying, that's for sure, and of course that is with the 50% clean race bonus. On top of that, we get our 6-star roulette ticket parts ticket. So moving into the second event of the week, this is the Historic Sports Car Masters at Willow Springs on the Big Willow layout. Now there is a PP limit cap here of 580 PP and of course a year cap on the vehicle. So in terms of this event, I am going to give you my specific tuning sheet for the car I was running. I was running the Toyota Levin from 1983. And the tune is as follows. We are running the Sports Soft compound of tyres, a fully customizable suspension with the body height set to 90 across the board. We are running the anti-roll bar at 8 at the front and 7 at the rear with compression to 38 and expansion to 49. Natural frequency is 285 front and 320 at the rear. Negative camber angle is 2.0 across the board. Toe angle 0.10 outwards at the front and 0.15 inwards at the rear. Fully customizable diff set to 8, 15 and 5. Fully customizable racing transmission set to 240 and the manual gears are as follows. Final is 4.245. Fifth is 0.745-324. Fourth is 0.930-244. Third is 1.217-186. Second, 1.655-137. And first is 2.548-89. Then in terms of the rest of the car, to dip it under to the 580 pp limit was a 16 ballast and the normal ECU. Downforce at the front is 50, 250 at the rear. Then we have the racing air cleaner, racing silencer, racing exhaust manifold, racing brake system, racing pads, and then we have all of the permanent upgrades pretty much. So if we move over to the right, we have bore up, stroke up, engine balance tuning, polish ports, camshafts, rods, racing crankshaft, compression pistons, all the weight reductions and increased body rigidity. Just a quick blast through that one. Feel free to just pause if you need to. In terms of the car itself, it has a rating of 579.87, 211 brake horsepower. Overall, this is a lightweight rocket ship and it is perfect for the likes of Big Willow and the cars that we're going to come up against. So in terms of the event itself, it can be quite awkward if you cannot find a car to your liking. A lot of these older cars in Gran Turismo 7 can be extremely sketchy, especially when it comes to the tuning sheets. A lot of them can have the PP glitch where it just won't let you enter the car, and then you have to absolutely destroy the tuning sheet to actually get the car to enter. At that point, it's going to be uncompetitive. In terms of the AI, since it does seem to be pretty randomized and there is a pretty extreme pool of cars that can run up front, it can be made a lot more artificially difficult. So in terms of the event, that we're running here, the only car that we need to worry about was the Moira, which is going to have a massive lead over the rest of the field. So again, if you get the likes of the Countach or the Moira, at that point you could be in trouble if you don't have a decent enough car for this event. So the 11 that we're running here is extremely nimble and extremely good through the corners, and that is where we're going to make up most of our time. Again, these older cars are a little bit more sketchy. The AI doesn't necessarily drive them to the best of their ability, so they're extremely slow through the corners, and that is where we're going to make the majority of our moves. We don't necessarily have the highest top speed. The Lamborghini can probably outrun us, but again, as long as we're quick and absolutely flat out through the corners, it shouldn't be an issue. So we got ourselves into second place and had to get a 5-second gap down. As you can see, we did pretty much make easy work of that Lambo and then decided to outrun it before we got into the fast final straight where that thing could probably catch us up. By the end of 5 laps, we were around about 18 to 19 seconds in the lead. So overall, not too bad. It can be extremely awkward though if you don't have a car for this event. That's tick number 2 of the week and 70,000 credits in terms of the payout. So not too bad. We didn't get the clean race bonus. I believe a little bit of a, door-to-door contact early on. Unfortunately, got rid of that for us. Up next, we have the special event. So this is going to be a little bit different. This is the pre-existing lightweight K Cup at Mayabi layout of Kyoto Driving Park. So it's something that we've not seen before, where a pre-existing event gets turned into a special event. And I'm pretty sure, unfortunately, that this event will just disappear. Now, in terms of the car that we're using here, we're using the Honda S660. And we do have the Bike Sport engine swap, which is, I believe, the engine from the Honda 2 and 4. Now there is a PP limit of 400 PP in place, however when it comes to the car and not showing you the tuning sheet for that one, that is because we've basically placed the engine swap in and then just got the car under 400 PP. As you can see, we're running the likes of Comfort Soft, so we're using really poor tyres. Again, we've absolutely nerfed the car itself, so it has very little power output compared to its standard output, and we do have a lot of weight added. To be honest, the build's just not that great, but it does work quite easy for 400 PP. So again, if you do want to recreate this build, engine swap the S660 and then just continue to nerf it until it gets under 400. At that point, this event is a breeze. So there's no real point in me showing you the tuning sheet. In terms of the AI, it's a big grid. There are 19 AI opponents, 20 cars in total, including yourself, on this very short and small layout. However, because of the cap in place, you probably won't see much of the AI once you work your way through that grid. You will find that you'll probably jump from sort of group to group to group before you end up getting in the lead, and at that point you're going to be out on track on your own. Every now and again you might end up lapping an AI if they have a bit of an off or a bit of a rough and tough with another one of the AIs, but apart from that it's a pretty quiet race overall. So as you can see, beginning of lap 5 is when I took the lead. Now at this point we're just not going to look back. Again, you've got a lot of AI tripping over themselves, so it does seem a lot more randomized than some of the other events. It's basically which one of the K cars can practically break away from the rest of the pack that will do well, and thankfully that does hold them up and does make overtaking them relatively easy. So tick number 3 of the week, 120,000 credits with a clean race bonus really isn't too bad for this. We do get our daily driving marathon, which was unfortunately a 4-star ticket, but of course we do get another reward on top of that, which is for completing 3 events, 150k. Let's move on then to event number 4 of the week, the Hypercar Parade. Now I am not typically a fan of these events, but I must admit this is probably the best of the bunch in terms of actual on-track action. So this is at Dragon Trail Gardens, and it does actually have the ability to throw weather in there. It does seem a little bit random, so you might get rain, you might not. So I do recommend try not to run a car on the racing compound of tyres, just in case you can get rain. A lot of the time it does lock off the pits and you can't actually jump in and put a different compound on. I'm not quite sure if it's the same here. I didn't get rain until the final stages, so I didn't need to have to find out. But in terms of the car we're running here, we are running an fine-tuned GTR, I guess that's the word for it. So it is basically heavily tuned, but not fine-tuned. And it does kind of make for a little bit of a messy situation. Now you'll all probably remember the bouncing cars when 1.49 released. It pretty much suffers from that issue over curbs, in that it is extremely sketchy and practically just bounces about everywhere. So honestly, I would just recommend using something at least a bit sensible. I just went for the whole nuclear option here and just went for something ridiculous. It did make short work of the AI, but it was so sketchy, which you're going to see in this clip here, that if I just clipped a curb wrong, it would start the whole bouncing physics glitch, which of course came with 1.49. As you can see, we hit the sausage curb and then the car just starts bouncing around everywhere. It looks so janky and so stupid, but again, this event overall really isn't that difficult. It's going to depend on what kind of weather you get, will depend on how hard the event will be. As I said, with my event, I didn't get the rain until the dying laps of the race, and it didn't even set properly, so it meant that the racing softs were absolutely fine for the entirety of the 6 laps. Again, it may be different for you depending on what the weather does. So at the end of 6 laps, that is going to be tick number 4 of the week. Of course, no special reward for this one. The payout though, not too bad, 142,500 credits with that clean race bonus. So let's move on to the final event of the week, which is a return of the WTC 800, this time at Autopolis International Racing Course. Now in terms of the event itself, I quite often get this one confused with the 900 event. I'm pretty sure, if I remember rightly, The weather can be randomized at both, but in terms of my event, I had a fully dry race here. I went for the NSX Group 2. This is the 2008 model. Now, in terms of beginning to actually get into the race, all I did was down tune the car. Again, I'm going to start off at fuel mix 6 just to see where the sort of usage is at. Now, in terms of the fuel usage, it's not extremely high here. In fact, I would say that the tire usage is a lot higher. So you may notice a lot more tire deg. Now, you can do it in a Group 2 car without pitting. Now, since this is a down-tuned car, there's no real upgrades there, there's no turbocharger, and it's naturally aspirated, it doesn't seem to use that much fuel at all. However, the NSX is notorious for, you know, absolutely shredding its tires, and although it did hold on without having to pit stop, it would actually start chewing them up relatively quickly for a set of racing hards. So just be aware that you might want to monitor your actual tire usage during this event. So in terms of the way that the event is laid out, it's one of the rare occasions of the 800 events where the AI isn't necessarily going to be pitting every couple of laps or so. I'm not sure, but I do feel like some of them won't pit at all, and the ones that do pit so deep into the race that, again, you just want to be using a car that doesn't necessarily have to pit at all, and a car you feel comfortable in driving with, you know, quite high tire deg. Again, it's going to be very car dependent, but something like the NSX here, although it can get sketchy when it shreds its tires, did hold on pretty well for the entirety of the event. So just bear that in mind. Unlike a lot of the other 800 events, they're not going to be, you know, pitting in every couple of laps. Now, once you get up into P5, there's going to be a fair gap to the rest of the field. As you can see, we do manage to eventually catch it up as we go on to the beginning of lap 5 at this point. As you can see, we're going to go side by side with Fraga here, get the move done, and then all we have up ahead of us is the BRZ, which again we're going to make pretty short work of, just out braking him. That's where the likes of the Group 2s are just so good. They have incredible downforce, incredible brakes, and overall a lot of grip, so it's really comfortable to just get those overtakes done. I do recommend towards the latter stages just to keep an eye on your weather radar in case you can get rain here. Again, it can be very confusing between the 800 and 900 event here as to what will actually go on track. You may also end up lapping some of the AI, so just be extremely careful, as it does seem like they just won't move out of the way for you, and when you're on shredded rubber, that is one of the worst things that can happen, as you can end up in an accident and just lose a ton of time. In the end though, it's a pretty easy event. We got first place nice and easy there with a pretty big margin to the rest of the field. That is tick number 5 of the week. Unfortunately, we didn't get the clean race bonus, so only 160k. But to make up for that, we do get the free car ticket reward. So let's go ahead and open up our rewards for this week. We're going to open up our daily first. This, unfortunately, again, was a 4-star. And you can probably guess here, I would end up with an absolutely terrible reward for this one. 10,000 credits, which just is, you know, terrible. What's the point? You may as well just not give me the ticket at that point. We're then going to add 150,000 credits to the account for completing 3 events and move into the other tickets. So we do have the parts ticket up now. Now again, this can reward some decent stuff. However, it is extremely randomized as to what you are going to get and what car you're going to get it for. So as you can see, I'm going to end up with the camshafts, and this is actually going to be for the 2017 Honda NSX, which isn't too bad, to be honest. I've had worse parts. Then we're going to open up the car ticket. Now, as you can see here, this can reward some of the best cars in the game. We have the likes of the 918 Spider, Tomahawk, some Le Mans cars there, and unfortunately, we're probably going to get the weakest of the bunch with the Mazda Vision RX. However, though, it is an extremely good looking car. I cannot deny that at all. And that is going to round it up for this week's weekly challenges. A massive thank you to all of my channel members listed on screen now. Thank you for that continued support. If you do want to join, it's massively appreciated, as I will try and keep you up to date with everything Gran Turismo related. A massive thank you to you guys watching at home. Have a fantastic start to your weekend. Take care, guys. Peace.